Hello and welcome to Springboard, your virtual university. My name is Albert Ocran, welcoming you on behalf of our big team here at Springboard, ably led by Comfort. This is your most inspirational show and the point of convergence for the greatest minds. Springboard is brought to you by the Springboard Ratio Foundation and proudly sponsored by MTN Pulse Just Be, the Enterprise Group Enterprise Advantage, UMB Bank, celebrating 50 years in banking, and Central University, Ghana's premier private Christian university. Our media partners, the Multimedia Group and the Graphic Business. Last week, we began a very interesting conversation about digital transformation, starting from the dance between digital transformation and consumer or customer expectation, and meandering our way through artificial intelligence, big data, sentimental analysis. I like that one, sentimental analysis. We ended up with an inspiring look into the lives of our two guests, with emphasis on early deprivation, commerce, boldness, dreaming, pivoting, reading, networking, being crazy, and ending with hope. It was beautiful. We promise to continue today. We are right back here today with my friends, Sammy Bartels, Senior Manager Regulatory Affairs at MTN Ghana. Sammy, good to see you again.
It's good to be back. Thank you for having us.
Last week was very, very touching and very, very beneficial. Thanks for making time.
Thanks for having us.
Right. So last week, Jacob, you were a greenhorn, but today you are settled in the role. Jacob Gyan, CEO of Adroit 360. Jacob, good to see you again.
Yes, thanks for having me. I'm feeling at home today.
Yeah. Now you are settled in the business. And these are very important conversations that I'm sure you're not surprised at the reaction. They inspire people and they give direction to our listeners and viewers. Today, I want to look at a different dimension of our conversation about technology and innovation. We want to look at scalability, how to scale up a little idea to become a big thing, and look at especially areas that people interface with on a day-by-day basis: entertainment, music, films, sports, education, commerce, deliveries, media, and church. And hopefully that should cover quite a wide range and maybe borrow from other industries as well, just to make the point. So let's start with scalability. What is it, and what are the signs that an idea or a business is potentially scalable?
There's an illustration from telecom that I'd like to use. The engineers would set up a site at an area that prospectively people will use for telecommunication services. As part of the planning, they could determine that around the studio, we project that 1,000 people will be able to use the network for whatever services, whether for voice, for data, and all of that. So on that basis, they plan the site. They probably will add another 1,000 to say that's the headroom, just in case there's any form of growth. And then they leave the sites there. Now, Springboard locates their office there. Suddenly, there's a buzz of activity and other people come there. Within a period of 2 years, that initial 2,000 that was planned is exhausted. And your 1,000 headroom is also being exhausted. What has happened to the site is growth. And that growth just happens to you because of certain inputs and certain things that you have put in place. Because what has probably happened in the area is that more people have moved into the area because Springboard is in that area. 2, even if not many people moved in, the people who are using the network are suddenly doing a lot more activity, which is using up the capacity that the network has. So then where does scalability come in? Scalability then becomes the capability that that site would have to be able to expand its capacity to accommodate what has happened to it. And a lot of times, I think people get it all mixed up between what the growth is and what the scalability is. And in fact, I think the worst part is that, especially for people in small businesses, they don't even take time to assess their level of scalability. So when the growth happens, and your scalability will determine how you keep up with your growth, they find themselves in a very difficult situation because, as everybody understands it, your scalability must always be a step ahead of your potential growth, so you are not found wanting.
Jacob, this is a very nice foundation that Sammy has laid. He's saying that using the telecoms as a springboard or as an example, you can estimate demand and set up a facility to meet that demand with room for growth. Now, if as a result of a trigger or a certain development or a major player moving into the space, the demand far outstrips the installed capacity, scalability is about the inbuilt ability or the ability of the entity to respond to that opportunity by growing the facilities to meet bigger demand and I suppose maintain the quality or improve the quality that people were enjoying when it was smaller. How critical is it to factor this into the business's strategy or conversations right at the onset?
So Sammy used a telecom analogy. Let me use a business analogy. So you're operating a business. Your annual turnover is, let's say, $100,000. But let me use cedis because the cedi is suffering against the dollar. So let's promote the cedi. so you are making 100,000 cedi annually. If you are able to make 200,000 cedis without investing so much more, that is when we say you are able to scale a business. If you make 100,000 cedis and then you invest another 100,000 cedis and you make 220,000 cedis, you've made 20,000 cedis more than the 100,000 cedis you were making. That is growth. Scalability really means that you do not invest so much in terms of hiring more people, going to more infrastructure. And that is why the word scalability really always is with the tech people. I'm not saying every business is scalable using standardization and automation. But for a tech business, before an investor would even consider, they want to see that if we look at your application, you reinvest $1 million. In 10 years' time or in 3 years' time, we wouldn't be investing anything, but the revenue would just be going up. That is when we say that this business has a proof of scalability.
Some time ago, there were computers called 286. They didn't have the capacity to add on any additional memory or anything. It was built like that. So you can say they were not scalable. So if you suddenly found yourself running a program that required a faster speed or a stronger, you had to literally discard that. Later, new models came that you could say, oh, my processor is, okay, I can add on more memory, I can add on more. So that you can say is scalable. If you run an entity, can you find yourself in a box because you built it with no idea that this area could have new players come in and transform the whole space, and find yourself in a situation where the new opportunities have come, but the system cannot respond to the opportunity?
I think without mentioning many examples, it's been one of the biggest challenges here. I talk to a lot of tech startups. You know, people come to you, they say, I've got this great idea, how can you help me? Can you advise how I can set it up and how I can get things done? I think, you know, having a good education of how to run a business, both looking at what happens internally and externally, is critical, and a lot of people choose to overlook that. I think last week, Jacob was giving the example of where he got to a place and suddenly he was shifting so much money that he needed a professional to take a look at his books, to take a look at his contracts and everything, because he was now dealing in the major leagues and not in the minor leagues. And a lot of people tend to overlook that. And there are certain practical examples. I think there was something I saw online where the person said that, where is your magic formula? Is the magic formula, for instance, dependent on the chef or dependent on your ingredients? If it's dependent on your ingredients, your business is scalable. If it's dependent on your chef, there could be a problem. And one of the issues. So he will, for instance, have experienced a business that is built around talented people, for instance. If it's in the sort of space where that talent is hard to come by, beyond a certain level, in order to be able to deliver to a certain level of clientele, you need to multiply the number of people you started with. Yeah. Now, if you do not have that talent, that means that you can't deliver up to a certain scale. And a lot of times, people do not factor that in, and they are caught flat-footed. And so they would have gone in there, now they are experiencing enormous growth, but they cannot keep up with it. Again, we see so many examples with very small businesses that start. Again, people misread the data. The fact that you are successful might actually be a very localized success. If it's successful in East Legon, will it be successful on the other side of town? And it's easy to read the data to say that because it's successful in East Legon, if I open a branch in every part of Accra, I would have the same market. The data might be completely different. The other thing is that when growth starts happening and companies are expanding, a lot of people do not factor in the external environment, the external tax environment, the external regulatory environment, and the role of other government agencies, including the MMDAs and other ones. So for instance, you might be doing your small business, if it's food, FDA, haven't really taken an interest in you. If it's technology, depending on what you are doing, none of the regulators would have taken an interest in you. But at a certain level, suddenly, there are all these obligations that you have to meet. It affects your bottom line. It affects the sort of skills that you require. People will walk into companies like MTN and wonder, why is the company so big? Why do you have that department? Why do you have that department? Why do you have that department? That is because at the beginning, you do not see the need to have this. But at a certain level of growth, in order to scale, you need to acquire these things. So all these factors come into place, and it affirms what you just said, that it's very easy to not just hit a plateau, but to reach a stage where you are completely out of your depth. I think that's where a lot of businesses have met their Waterloo.
Let me tell you an interesting story about an experience that I had in my days, my early hustle. You talked about your hustle days last week. I've also had my own hustle days. But in my early hustle days after uni, when I was doing a business that involved producing handicrafts, I relied very much on cane frames. And so I spent a lot of time with the rattan producers. Those guys you find around the Chrysler, the corner, the corner there.
Switchback Road.
Yeah, Switchback Road area. There was one there, and there was one at Apebia, which has now been taken over by high-rise buildings. And there was one at the Ponglo behind where the nurses. Yeah. And I had friends in all those places. And I found out one very interesting development. There was a big trip organized in the mid-90s for these people to travel to America and meet big supermarket chains with the idea of exposing their work. It was facilitated by the Ghana Export Promotion Council to help them meet big-time shopping chains so that they could buy their baskets, their various cane products. The samples were beautiful. I recall going there in the week in which we were going to go, and I saw the samples and I was like, Charlie, guys, you will make money. When the guys went and came back, I went to see Charlie. How did it go? They said Charlie was terrible. I said, well, how? How could it be terrible? The samples were nice. Didn't the people like the samples? They said the samples, they loved them. So what went wrong? Say it was a simple conversation, and they killed it. So the guys took them to the big supermarket chains, the Walmart. It wasn't the small ones. And those people, they have 40,000 branches, 20,000 branches. So to be able to go into their catalog, you need to say you can deliver 40,000, 80,000, so that every branch must have at least two there, and then where they can get the backup from.
Yeah.
So imagine that my guys very happily carrying their samples, and they say, okay, so this one, for instance, if we want 60,000, how soon can you deliver? The guy say, hold on, what did you say? 60,000. The man, his whole life, he has produced 300. What are you talking about? 60,000. Yeah. You say, hey, this one too, if you want 40,000. You know, and the people were asking them were very excited about the quality and the difference to make in their shops. And they were wondering why these Ghanaian business people were not excited about the quantities they were asking about. So they asked them, is there a problem? He said, oh no. Did you say 60,000? No. Don't you have a cooperative? Can't you just come together and produce this? I mean, it should be very easy to come together and produce it. And the guys are still looking at them. So in the course of the discussion, the buyers asked them, help me to understand your raw material source, how many hectares of rattan have you planted in Ghana? And then that was the problem.
Yeah, that would be a problem.
I mean, the guys were very honest. They said the thing it grows in the wild in the western region. Yeah. So they put it on the train. When it arrives at the timber market train station, we go and the first person to get there buys it, and then we share it among ourselves. And that is the source of raw material. And the guy said, oh, okay, now we understand. In the Philippines and other countries who are your competitors, they grow, let's say, 20,000 hectares of rattan. They grow it. It's a plantation. So you know what? Your samples are nice, but to be very, very honest, you can't do business with it. You told your husband or your wife that I'm going to America to go and bring big business. You are coming back with the realization that your value chain it starts from the middle with no back, no foundation. So, son, do you pray? Do you cry? What do you do?
But if it was now, it would probably even be worse because of climate change and all that. They would then not only want you to plant, but they would want one that is climate friendly, that meets certain standards. A few years ago, I was involved in a project in the north, assisting some colleagues. And what they were trying to do was to try to get local suppliers of corn to support raw materials to companies that produce these corn beds. And these are lots of multinationals who produce baby food and all of that. And when they went from farm to farm, the same problem. They just didn't have the capacity. Where they had the capacity, there was the issue of standardization, which they had never thought about, because as far as they are concerned, they are just planting maize. They didn't consider whether the maize they are planting, their harvesting practices, their storage practices and all that was enough to make them up to international standards. I think one of the things technology has taught us now is that there's only one standard. There's a global standard. Because technology has compressed the world. It's caused a sort of convergence. So if you are Jacob here building software and all that, there's nothing like African level, Ghana level standard in that software and whatever happens elsewhere. So that's why I said it's a capability that a lot of people do not assess their businesses for until it's dropped on them, like the rattan weavers. Nobody had brought their attention to the fact that you need a more sustainable source of your supplies, and that you cannot just deal with the natural harvesting from the wild until it was finally dropped on them. And too often it becomes too late to react, because how then do you produce 60,000 from 300? It's impossible.
This is where we break it down for the benefit of our listeners and viewers. Somebody is doing something and is praying to God and saying, Father, this is my year of increase. This is my year of growth. This is my year of expansion. And God hears it. And okay, so God has done his part. You've prayed. But how do you take that small idea and grow it to become big? And what is the role of technology? Just take any example of something that started small and it grew to become big, and the role of technology in that growth, so that we can listen. I mean, we've and I'm glad that courtesy of the submission of Sam and in this early part of the conversation, we've identified the fact that if you don't think scalability right up front, you may find yourself shocked that you've done well so far, but where you are now, you're out of your depths. And then also other considerations like regulatory issues and capacity issues that will come up that you have to confront, as well as sustainability of your raw material source. But give us a walk through a real life situation of something that was scaled up significantly and what
So I will start from my business. I think that one of the things that worries Ghanaian businesses when they want to scale is what I call the owner's paradox. So when I started, without me, work doesn't go on. And so in my early years, a Nigerian investor wanted to meet me in Nigeria, bought a ticket for me, had met the federal government and had an application he wanted us to build for the entire Nigerian government. And that was my first experience. Once I traveled, I realized nothing happened in my corporation. And so without the owner, nothing happens. And people enjoy actually that. A lot of businesses, the owners want to be the shining light. They want to have the glory. And so they don't see how that affects them, and therefore they don't even think of creating room for scalability. And that is a key point. And so as the business grew, I also want to talk on the power of collaboration, because Sammy was telling me that Ghanaian businesses, sometimes it looks like we are all competing. You know, when we never talk of the power of collaboration.
Yep.
So there was a client doing exactly the same thing I do that had won a bid from the federal, the state, Texas state. And when we signed a contract with them, we worked together. They built some parts of the application, we built some parts of the application, and that really was a big drive. And so we are sitting in Ghana, and by power of collaborating with one of the big software companies in America, we had huge revenue coming in monthly. And so the power of collaboration is something that I also want to talk about. And one thing that people also want to do is ostensibly show off. So they start a business, they have one branch, and then they want to be everywhere. They want to set up a branch in Kumasi, a branch in, and that is something that also kills businesses, because we don't take time to do research, look at the data to see what I'm doing in Accra. Are there businesses that also need the same service in Kumasi, in Tamale, in around the world? Because you might be doing it right here, but the conditions in those areas might curtail your progress. And so if you take time to do research and look at data, you probably would go in there and have a big win. And so recently there's a woman who sells beans, a very popular beans joint in Accra called Lebene. Something Sammy and I used to enjoy in Alajo.
Hey, they call it Gobe.
Lebene Gobe. Okay. Yes. So I
know something else about it. It's Gobe. So I greet you, Israelite. I greet you, and no comment. Comfort Ocran, Israelite. I greet you both. No comment.
I mean, if they are lovers of Gobe, I would order on the platform for them. So
platform the inside.
Yes. So I go there, and I see bankers. I think I saw a car of one of the big media houses, and they buy the gobe in bulk, huge. So I go there as somebody just to buy gobe, and I'm spending 30 minutes. So I approach the woman and say, "Look at the traffic."
Which location is this?
Big farm.
Okay.
And a pack of gobe. I don't believe to buy gobe more than 10 cedis. Gobe is food for all, but this woman sells gobe crazy expensive, and I mean it's amazing. Sammy knows it. So I go there, approach the woman and say, I'm a software engineer. We work for all these big companies, mentions all the companies to fight in it. But I want to build an app for you so people can buy gobe. The woman says no. Because she's already making money. She thinks about, hey, you come and take percent. So I asked her, are you on Global? Are you on both? She says, no, their percentage is too much. So I asked, what percentage will work for you? Don't worry, put the percentage, I'll build the app for you. So I talked to her husband, build the app. We started in December. And the sales we made in January, the sales was crazy. Now she calls me and says, what percentage do you want?
Are you serious?
Yes. And if I've opened the data for Sammy before, you'll see people ordering in Betele, Tema, from Pig Farm, Kaswa. We deliver everywhere. And so at a point in time, I had to talk to a friend of mine to form a courier business and buy the bikes and do the deliveries for her. And she is now doing times 3 of what she was doing in person with all that traffic, doing that also online.
Last week I asked a question, and I want to ask that question again. The application of technology, a simple app, to the Lebene Gobe business, is it a win-win for the clients as well as the service provider? Because I see from what you are saying that Lebene is better off. If she's doing 3 times the business, she's better off. I almost have a feeling that she doesn't have to have a crowd breathing down her neck.
Absolutely.
You can go to a place and there's nobody there, but she's doing far more business than you think.
Yes.
That's a win-win for her, isn't it?
That's a big win for her.
Is it not also a win-win for the clients, because they can sit at home and not have to drive their cars from the bank and go there, or the media house you mentioned and go there and order? So
it's in most cases, it's a big win for all of them.
Yeah.
However, technology also, there are some people we call they are pessimistic about technology. So sometimes, when you go on a web app or a website, it tells you accept these cookies. They collect your data, and this data is used to do a lot of bad things in what we call the dark web. And so if you follow the US elections, there were a lot of talk about data was sold and people hacked people's information. And so when you go on a platform like the one we've built for the woman and you buy, we usually accept mobile money, credit card payments, and all other payments. People enter their credit card details. And if these platforms are not robust enough, it means that your data could be, compromised. And you'll be seeing bank transactions alert you are losing money.
Okay.
But if the systems are robust, then this is a very, very big win for everyone.
When I was younger and I used to watch Cine at Princess Cinema in Takoradi, one of the Cine we watched was called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. So let's talk about the good. Then we'll look at also the bad and the ugly that we should be careful about. So staying with the good, what you're saying is that this woman delivered multiples of volumes of the same business that she was delivering. Let's break it down. When we come back, let's find out if you are a Lebanese, you have cars parked in front of you, and you can't even deal with the flood. Meanwhile, you are enjoying it. What you call the owner's pride. You are enjoying the fact that anybody who passes sees the cars. Yes. Even that you are strong. And it's nice, but there's a limit to which you can sell. Even if you sold all day, there's a limit. Yes. So you're saying the next level is where a young man you don't even know comes to you and says, I can bring a software that will make this easier for you. And by that, even though you don't know him, you don't trust him, he insists and you give him a chance, and suddenly you are doing 3 times. There may not be as many cars parked there, but you are making far more money. Yeah. And now you can probably even get adjacencies to do the delivery, and you still are a business. Yes. Dispatch riders are brought in, now they get more money. You get more money. Now the software developer to now get some money. Yes. Probably your assistant can now be manning new production joints. Yes. Now the customer can stay in their media house in their bank and can get their gobe. Yes. When we come back, let's break down the conveniences that this brings, the new jobs this brings, the potential for government to get taxes, and then now spread it to what about a church? What about education? What about media? What about that entertainer? And let's create a new world of technology and innovation. This is Springboard of Virtual University. I told you. This is a very interesting discussion about possibility. What do you guys call it at MTN? A new world of possibilities? Then I like the latest one. What are you doing today?
What are we doing today?
What are we doing today? Today we are selling gobe. We are selling gobe in the studio by the power of technology. When we come back, let's find out how replicable are these concepts in different industries, and how can you, in particular, listening to us, take this idea and then literally shred your business plan and scale it up to a global level. Please don't go away.
There once was a man who had it all. He had skill, he had charisma. He was loved by all, but above all, he knew the importance of helping others, lifting others up. He knew the importance of giving other people an advantage so that they too would use that advantage to help others. All you need is that advantage that sets you apart from the rest. And when you discover that advantage, life's challenges don't seem so daunting anymore. That's where we come in. Enterprise, your advantage.
Was established in 1972 as the premier bank for the corporate and private sector in Ghana. From our very beginning, as the only Ghanaian bank serving all categories of businesses, we set a standard for excellence and innovation. Over the past 45 years, we've built a financially healthy and strong bank, demonstrated our commitment to our customers and to growing businesses, and exhibited originality and innovation at every turn. At UMB, our focus is built around people, service, products and technology. These are the key to our present success and our future triumphs. At UMB, we are poised to make a difference not only with our customers, but also in the banking industry. We invite you to share in our future. Our future starts now with you.
Central University, we are not just giving theoretical knowledge, but also real-life practical immersion. Our projects and research are targeted at solving real-life problems within our built and a natural environment. My name is Che Joseph Bafo, an architecture student. The faculty and facilities available to us make us industry ready. The project I'm working on recently won an award when my colleagues and I visited the Netherlands. Central University makes you industry ready.
Welcome back to Springboard, your virtual university, and to this interesting conversation about scalability, brought to you by the Springboard Roadshow Foundation and proudly sponsored by MTN Pulse, the Enterprise Group, UMB Bank, Central University, with media support from the Multimedia Group and the Graphic Business. My guests for today, Sammy Bartels and Jacob Gyan, helping us to unpack all kinds of possibilities in the world of technology. Last week, they began this journey with us, telling us about the various technologies deployed and how customer experience influences the direction of these technologies, and ended up with their own personal examples and stories about pivoting from one level to another in their lives. Today we are looking at scalability, how one idea can grow to become big. So far we've learned a few things about putting something somewhere and envisioning a certain demand, and that demand spiraling and how you respond to that demand as scalability. That's from Sammy. We look also at strategy and how your strategy for your business should build scalability into it right at the inception. We looked at replicability, how an idea may work perfectly somewhere, but as you begin to scale, you find out location-specific issues and then regulatory issues, and then also the size has implications for compliance that would end up changing the size and scope of the business. We looked at standardization and capacity, the example of Rattan working in Ghana and then as against the demand in the US versus the Philippines example. If you didn't watch it or you were not on at the time, get it from the beginning and you'll find that very interesting. We looked at the owner's paradox, Jacob saying that we love to feel important and at the center of things, but the more you can devolve yourself as owner, the more the business can scale. Then the power of collaboration. Prof. Ade just simply described it as this. Being the sole owner of a 100 CD business is not as nice as being a part owner of $1 million business. So stop feeling so important in your $100 business and work with other people. It was very simple. And Jacob, we call that the power of collaboration. Then the idea of research came on board, that don't assume that the idea worked here and it will work elsewhere, and don't experiment by going there before you realize that there are issues there you hadn't dealt with. Do the research and use the data. And then we talked about the Gobe example. We ended on the Gobe app and how a small business with a growing clientele was held by the power of technology to scale up and be able to serve different clients. So the big question for me as we explore scalability is a concept like what you just described with Gary and Beans, aka Gobe, replicable in different industries. So let's at this point take a few industries that we are familiar with and give some examples of how technology and innovation has helped to scale up what they are doing tremendously, and how those who did not respond found themselves in some instances from a leadership position struggling way behind the queue because a very ambitious, intelligent person just took a technology and just blasted them out of the water. Let's start with you, Sam. Is there any example that comes ready to mind?
Let's start with something the country is very passionate about, which is sports.
Sports, okay.
And, with the World Cup coming, I guess for everybody who is familiar with sports, the brand that everybody looks up to as the model brand is the Premier League brand. And you're wondering, why do people not attend our Ghana Premier League matches, but they'll spend all their time watching Premier League? It's because a lot of things have changed when it comes to sports. In terms of how the sport is played itself, there's a movie called Moneyball. And Moneyball traces the history of analytics in sports using baseball, where somebody takes over a team and the recruitment was done without any data based on old men who used their hunch. And they found out that the recruitment was not actually about putting together the best players, but putting together the players whose stats complemented each other. So a practical example on a football field will be, if you have a striker who gets 20 headed goals in a season, you would need somebody who is good at crossing the ball to the striker. Other than that,
that's the story of you, Bayern and Tony Yeboah in his Frankfurt days. There was somebody whose job it was to cross the ball. The moment that dynamic changed, he didn't win goalkeeping because the person who crosses the ball is not available. Something close to that, but you're so right about
now the data is available.
Yeah.
So you would ask, why are they buying this player? He's not good enough for the club. He's buying him because the stats suggest that buying him will improve somebody else who is in the team or somebody else that you intend to bring in the team. And that has given teams in more established countries the advantage. And so you have Ghanaian clubs, you have Ghanaian coaches. It is only now that analytics is beginning to come into our game. And even that is only at the national team level where we have a video analyst for the Black Stars, for instance. Prior to this, it had never been part of our game. But starting from baseball and then going to all the other sports, it had become a big issue. And so you have now, even on the football field, in stadium, you would have seen that you have coaches like Pep Guardiola's team having tabs. What these tabs are they are analytics in real time as the football is being played on the players, on the team generally speaking, and how that. So it enhances performance. We've also seen technology in the physiological monitoring of players. Now we have smart everything. In NFL, American football, they have smart helmets. A lot of you may have seen the movie starring Will Smith, Concussion, which talks about the injuries. Now, these are such that depending on the nature of the impact that the NFL player has with the other person, the helmet reacts in a way. It doesn't take away everything, but it manages them. Now, they have smart jerseys which players wear, and it's able to track your physiological movement, everything. There are things that when players are training, monitors their heart, because in the past we had seen that players have had heart seizures and other things that affected them. And this is on the field. Then the consumption of the game itself has been transformed considerably because technology has meant the viewing patterns and the consumption patterns of people who love sports. It's completely been turned on its head. We spoke previously about, I think the last week when I was here, we spoke about how scheduled TV is no longer the in thing. It's the same thing with how people view things. People do not want to be tied to their TV set at home the whole time, watching a football game. If they have to be on the move and sit in a ride and being driven, they would want to watch it on their phone. So the convergence has meant that it's convergence across different devices, different channels. And a beautiful example is in boxing. When we were growing up, we used to watch Azuma Nelson's fights, and most of them were telecast on HBO. HBO has pulled out of boxing because it just cannot compete anymore. They sell cable television. But now you have players like Dazn, and there's a fight coming up in the heavyweight division. You see that Dazn are the ones who are streaming it. They stream, and people want to sit wherever they are and be able to stream the fight without having to pay the full bouquet for a particular service.
So it's pay-per-view.
It's pay-per-view. And incredibly, pay-per-view is the biggest money generator now in boxing. So HBO has had to pull out of it. The next thing is interactivity. Sports is now becoming interactive. You are not just a passive person who is watching it. In real time, people are betting on outcomes. In real time, people are interacting with various platforms of their clubs. And that has then segued into all these new technologies we are talking about. Virtual reality, augmented reality, even tokens and NFCs. And the clubs who have seen this in advance have plugged in. So at the end of the day, for certain sports, people think that, if a fan cannot be in the stadium but they like to see it live, let them wear a virtual reality headset. And then, right then, they are at Madison Square Garden watching the Knicks play.
Are there examples from entertainment, education, church? I'm a church person, so I want to hear something about church.
Yeah, let's talk about church.
Just to add to what Sammy said, local clubs in Ghana have also started using these technologies.
Yeah.
Legon cities, for instance, they've been wearing smart training kits. So it's able to tell how the players train and which player is putting in more effort, which player spends more.
Some of the stories I read about, I watch my team lose miserably, and then they say the opposition sprinted 9.8.
I guess you're a Manchester United.
They sprinted
8.5
kilometers more than you.
Yeah.
And then they won this number of sprints. And the data, and my son already is a data analyst, so he will roll the data for you. And he's an against person too. He's a non-minded person. He will gleefully give me the stats and smile as if to say, it says you're right. But let's see. Let's see
on to entertainment and the advent of streaming platforms. I mean, back then, if you wanted your music distributed in Ghana, you have to locate Big Ben, locate Best Buy, and go play the song to them. They have to like it. So if the distributor doesn't like your song, already as a musician, you are out. As an entertainer, you are out. But with the advent of digital distribution, you can sit at the comfort of your home, use streaming platforms, aggregators, the likes of Orchard, TuneCore, all these aggregators. Just upload the song from your home. Take a video with your own phone of you playing the guitar, put it on Instagram, and you could turn into an icon. The likes of Passenger, who is a big star around the world. That is how he broke out. In fact, Ras, one of the biggest hip hop stars in the world, not signed to any music label, didn't get help from anybody. Just used the power of Instagram and YouTube, uploaded his own music. So technologies has definitely really transformed how music or entertainment is distributed. Now, people use iPhones and Samsung phones to shoot their own movies, upload it to YouTube, and get millions of dollars from that. So people are not left hopeless and helpless. They can use these simple technologies. Sammy spoke about augmented reality, virtual reality. Now, if you want to order, let's say from a kitchen maker, they build virtual applications. You could build an online kitchen before you pay the money at any of these kitchenwares on the Spintex Road.
Stay with commerce. I mean, I love the line you asked about when you mentioned your experience with Lebanon and Gobe. You mentioned Global. You mentioned some of these softwares that allow people to aggregate different producers on the same platform and just shoot straight. I met a friend, a very close friend of mine, ordering his food. I was just standing next to him and I saw the options that were available to him. Click on the phone, bah, and they say, oh, in this number of minutes. I say, you don't even have to move a car. Yes. Let's talk about what it has done to change the area of commerce. Because on that, and by the click of the app, he had access to not just food, but supermarkets, to even medical supplies. Tell me about how it has changed the world of commerce.
What really it has done is it has brought convenience and brought instantaneous options to people. Because if you walk into any of the malls and you go into any of the shops, it will take you minutes to find what you want. And this time you can sit at the comfort of your home with the app of your preference, download the application, choose exactly what you want, if it's groceries, toiletries, whatever you want, and it shows you all the products. Now, the good thing about this is these applications are not just products sitting on shelves. They are data, and they are also reading what you like, what you need. And so if they see that you keep buying pregnancy products, they will start showing you lactating mother products. They will start, the good thing about this is also you can see other people's reviews. So these platforms are majority of the time open source. People can just go on and register, and so you can have people come and set up other shops. But by virtue of people being able to review, share their experiences. So before I buy a product, I watch how many stars they have. What are people, the shoppers or the buyers, what are they saying about this very shop? And once I find that they are convenient, they deliver on time, they do not touch the product, then I order from them. So this is what it has added. And there's another twist which we call the customer relations manager. And so this time, if I'm operating a shop and people are buying from me online, I have their data, I'm able to send them birthday wishes, I'm able to check up on them when they're not buying from me, and personalize the entire commerce experience. So the person now feels like I'm a part of this business. If I'm not buying from them, I feel bad because they are checking up on me, they are sending me what I need, they are helping me make the right choices. And if you place an order and let's say it's not distributed, majority of these platforms will help you get your money back.
You know, they even know your birthday, they give you special discounts on that. But okay, just to add that it's not just what is happening online that is being transformed. I've forgotten the name of the software, but now there are in-shop analytics software. So from the very moment you enter the shop, everything about you is being analyzed. Which products you hovered around without touching, which ones you touched for a while, how you looked at them, multiple cameras. And what that does is that there's a 360 view or analysis of this person before the person leaves the shop. And all this is combined with your online shopping habits. I personally believe that the most sought after commodity in the world right now is attention. Do you know that between the time you go onto a site and you leave, it's almost like there's a whole bidding war. Because suddenly, as you accept the cookies, there are all sorts of people trying to sell you all sorts of things. And all that information is being combined with a lot of the offline things that you have done. I think the final thing I'll say is the gig economy. And I think that's been one of the biggest things with commerce. Now, people can do a lot of side gigs, can do side hustles. It doesn't matter what profession you are in, because the technology makes it easy to partake in other things. And that's how come you have bankers who are doing side jobs on Instagram. Somebody sends something, it's delivered. And it doesn't have to clash or conflict in any way with their day-to-day work.
It's all driven by the power of technology. So you can be a banker and be an author, be an editor, and it's very interesting. Before we go on to how well Ghana is participating in this global development, let me give you a minute to tell me about my where I live, sleep, and eat, which is church.
Oh, yes.
How has technology changed the world of church from where you sit?
Oh, it's...
I can tell you because I'm in there, but I want to hear from you.
I think, but first, Rev, I think we all have to admit that one of the areas that has been slow to adopt technology has been church.
Okay.
I think traditionally, church has either been suspicious of technology or have always felt that the traditional way of doing things is always the best. I know pastors who have always insisted that there's nothing like physically coming together until COVID hit. So I think the biggest driver of change in the last few years has been the COVID phenomenon and the lockdown that came. So one of the things that has developed out of that is what in the US they are calling multi-site churches. So unlike before, now there are churches that broadcast from a main point and they have similar points where they are able to do other preparatory works, but at the end of the day, they sit there and then the same message is streamed to all of them. And I think it's becoming the norm for most churches on a Sunday. What that does is that irrespective of your location, you are still able to connect to the same service and be part of the service as if you were there. Then there's what they call the cyber-enabled church. And again, I think COVID to a large extent has done that. A lot of the things that traditionally you could only access by physically being in the church are now accessible online. I think some churches have the most awesome online presence, devotionals, everything. These days, chances are that when you go into a church for a wedding or funeral, there will be a QR code that you scan, and then the brochure and the program comes out, and you don't have to be giving physical programs anymore in church. And resources that people from the church who are not physically connected will want. Everything is online. So I think church has almost become virtualized now, and I think it's the best for everybody.
I think you should add that now with the electronic money issuer systems, you can pay your tithes. I've seen churches do it. My church does it. There are payment integrations where you can use all forms, credit cards, mobile money, and it has made supporting the church
almost all churches now have
also quite very, very simple.
Merchant accounts,
In all these conversations, Jacob, sometimes people say, "Oh, it's nice, but it's happening elsewhere. It's not happening in Ghana." And some of the examples you've given here have shown me that you've tried as much as possible to use Ghanaian examples, and that comforts me very much. But As we sign off today, with a couple of minutes that we have left, help us to appreciate how has technology become a leveler between the so-called developed and developing countries, from your own personal experience.
So two things. For me, who happened to be probably the first person, one of the first people I know in my family to even go to have tertiary education, and today I run a software business. I don't run a software business for Ghana. In fact, majority of my clients nowadays are in the States, in the UK, spread across the world. So technology has made it possible that I'm not a Ghanaian technology company. No, I provide technological services for all companies around the world. And quite recently, Sammy and I went to speak at a church. They invited us to speak to them and motivate the young ones and help them, encourage them to get into technology. And some few months down the line, my firm is recruiting national service personnel and interns. So they advertise online, and we get a message. So my secretary shows me, oh, there's a message from someone who is a candidate. The person says, I'm into 3D animation, I'm into Python programming, I'm into graphic design. And so we invite the person, and ethical hacking. So we invite the person to come for an interview. And the person replies that, no, I am 12 years old. so a 12-year-old...
3D animation, Python programming, and what they call ethical hacking.
Ethical hacking. And graphic design.
And graphic design. As you engage a candidate, the candidate says, by the way, I'm 12.
Well, I wasn't the person chatting with her. So, but I asked, then let her send her portfolio, things she has done. And then she sends videos of source codes, programs she has built. And this is somebody that just heard me speak about how technology can help growth. And based on a 12-year-old, based on the words she heard from me, realized that she could use technology to change her life.
So what, she had learned these things
on her own.
The session you had in her church.
Yes.
Did she have a teacher? Did she learn them online herself? Wow. I mean, help me to understand.
I didn't have a teacher.
I must get that 12-year-old. I must go and look. Please arrange for me to interview that 12-year-old because we want to drill this thing down till that person who says, listen, Ghana has no opportunity. There's nothing happening here. To believe that, listen, these things you're talking about is not just something in the air. It is happening right here in Accra, Ghana, right here in Takoradi, right here in Kumasi, and right in Sehui also, Aflao, anywhere that you are.
This girl is Kaneshi.
And Kaneshi too, and also in Techiman and Sehui. It's possible, and we should make that, we should drill that down till no one has any excuse. Let's sign off with your closing thoughts, and we could talk about technology and innovation all year through. And it's been very insightful hearing both you, Sam, and Jacob, and you have so much in common and so much passion about this. But what will be a closing idea for the person listening out there with a small idea who says, oh, this sounds so nice, I wish, I pray. Beyond prayer, what can they do? So
I think that people shouldn't be scared of technology. Usually when they hear artificial intelligence, virtual reality, and cloud computing, these things scare them. But computing is so simple. It's just like learning a new language. At the beginning, it sounds cumbersome, but immediately you start speaking it and you get along, you realize that it's just like communicating to the computer to do what you want. So don't be scared of it. Technology is here to promote your business, make it easier for you to do business. So just talk to experts, read about it. There are lots of platforms. Those young people who want to get into technology, this is the future. Do not be scared. Go to platforms like Udemy, Coursera, lots of these web platforms that you can learn how to program, that you can learn how to be a graphic designer, that you can learn how to do DX, DT. You shouldn't be scared of the big words, because if you do not get yourself involved, if we do not push an agenda to have young people get into technology, from even policy, from big corporations, and from parents getting their children to be included in this, we would be left behind. It would be like we saying we are a third world country and we will be stay here forever, because this is the direction the world is going. And your business can also grow if you include technology. Your business can grow if you include technology, and do not give an excuse and be left behind. Go there to Udemy, Coursera, any site, and learn it yourself. Don't even wait for your parents. Learn it yourself. And those are the words of Jacob Gyan, who has been challenging us with his own story as well as his knowledge of the area of technology. Sammy Bartels,
It's been a crazy 2-week journey. It's been a crazy 2-week ride on this with different angles, different nuances. How do you sign up on this?
2 things. One, for much younger people who are probably beginning this journey or are the early stages of the journey. And for them, I say that be willing to break old styles of doing things and see beyond the boxes. See beyond how it has always been done. All the people who innovated had to move away from that without somebody saying, yes, this is how it's been done, but because of technology, it can be done this way. Sometimes mobile money, for instance, will not have been in existence. For the more established entities, I don't sit here as an expert, and I'll quote something that Stephen Elon said in 2010 when he took over as head of Nokia. His first statement to the employees was, lose their arrogance. There are lots of companies that have done things in a particular way for years now. And in their mind, that's how they'll survive in the next 20, 30 years. I'd say lose the arrogance and do not be caught in the expert trap, where because you become an expert or the leader in a particular area, you become used to how things are done. A wise man once said, do not fear the man who practices 100 different kicks once each, but fear the man who practices one kick 100 times. And that famous one is Bruce Lee, because there's some small company somewhere practicing one kick 100 times and becoming very good at it, whose product could dislodge you. So just lose the arrogance and open yourself up. I think sometimes you become experts, but as Jonas Salk said in Unsafe Thinking, after expertise, there's exploration. So even if you're an expert, you need to open yourself up to explore what is new and what could change the game in the years to come.
As we sign off on this very interesting conversation, Sammy, you come from one of our biggest partners for the past 15 years in this journey, and for us it's been absolutely amazing as partners just watching this amazing company reinvent itself so many times. And just when you think you've seen it all, then a new thing comes. Just sign up by telling us about what are you doing today. Just something to go. What do you mean by what are you doing today?
At MTN, we say, what are you doing today? Because it's only in doing that you can achieve something. All the things we've spoken about, it starts with doing. So don't just listen. Go and do now.
Wow. Don't just listen, go and do now. You know what? Just join us online. These points that they've shared, every point they've shared today, from the point about scalability, the point about strategy, the point about replicability, the point about standardization, the owner's paradox, the power of collaboration, research, the Gobet, Le Benet example, the sports example from Sammy, the music example from Jacob, the convenience example from Jacob, and then the customer service manager. I like the part about they beginning to customize the experience and then sending you birthday messages so to confuse you. It's just very special. Then I like some of your points about in-shop analytics, just so that you know it's not everything that is online. Some of them are face-to-face experiences. And then your point about church. And then finally, your beautiful story about the 12-year-old who shook your company with her application for national service when she has been done uni are all reminders of this conversation. Just join us online and tell me which point is really your favorite and which point has really resonated with you. And let's continue this discussion and debate even beyond the walls of this conversation. I want to say a big thank you to you, Jacob Gyan and Sammy Bartels, for joining this conversation and for being with us for the past couple of weeks. I'm sure you've enjoyed yourself as much as I have. Next time you are ordering the gobe, look at the customer next to you, and I'm sure you will see a familiar face also ordering on the same app. But so we come your way again next week. My name is Albert Ocran, thanking you on behalf of Team Springboard, led by Comfort and our partners, MTN Pulse, the Enterprise Group, UMB Bank, Central University, and our media partners, the Multimedia Group, and the Graphic Business. Once again, on Tuesday, find in the Graphic Business on page 18, Sammy and Jacob telling us the story with all the examples they've given. Find it also on My Joy Online and springboard.com.gh. Don't just think about it. Don't just enjoy the conversation. Do it. And what are you doing today? And those are the words of MTN as they challenge you to do more than just listen. My name is Albert Ocran, saying God bless you, and God bless you.